my faithful followers on YouTube land. How you going today? Beautiful day today, it really is. One thing I'd like to talk to you today is about what to look for if you want to buy an old rental house, a shitty old dump to do up. What's the main things that I personally look for in an old, crappy old rental house that I'm going to either flip or restore without going overboard, without spending too much money and re-renting out. And it has to have a good return. For a starter, it has to be in a fairly good area. But you know, if you only have X amount of cash, or you only have X amount of equity in other properties, and you can only borrow $100,000, $200,000, or if you have $100,000, $200,000 in cash, that's the most ideal situation. But this is what I look for. I will go into realestate.com and I will do a search for a house. Let's say I have $100,000 to spend. I will look for a house no smaller than 3 bedrooms. The land isn't a real big issue, but it's good to have a bit of land. And it has to be within a couple of hours from where I live, really. That's actually quite a big thing. Now, when I find there'll probably be half a dozen houses that'll come up, and they'll be out in the mining towns, lots out in the mining towns out in central western Queensland. We don't want to go there because the towns aren't sustainable. You're relying on the mines to rent the property out. Even though they were purchased for $600,000 or $700,000 2 years ago, and some of them are, really, really awesome looking houses that you're going to get for $100,000. Long term, there's nothing in that town to sustain itself. You need a house or a town that's going to sustain itself, whether it's be cotton, wheat, stuff like that. So you don't have to rely on the gold mines, you don't have to rely on the coal mines, the gas fields to rent. Now, once you've found some properties in those areas within a couple of hours from you, you need to be able to jump in and drive there in the afternoon after work, something like that, if you need to do some work on it. But when you do find something within a couple of hours from you, okay, it has to be on stumps. Now you say, oh, why can't it be, on the ground? There's a lot of houses around 100,000 on the ground, and they're 100,000 for that bloody reason on the ground. You can't do nothing with them. If you want to put an extra toilet in, you can't do that. If the stumps are buggered underneath, you can't do it. You can't inspect the stumps. You can't see white ant damage. Oh, I've gone the wrong way. You can't see white ant damage. It's a real problem. You can't be underneath moving pipes and stuff like that. So it has to be on stumps. Now it can be 2 feet high, 3 feet high, 4 feet high, whatever you can do to get underneath. And the stumps don't have to be perfect, because actually you can replace the stumps. That's not an issue. So on stumps is important for me. That's probably one of my most important things. They have to be up so that we can do stuff. If we need to move the kitchen over, the toilet over, stuff like that. So that's very important for me. I don't like tiled roofs, okay? So it has to have corrugated roofs so that I can do it. So it's something that, if I need to put a sheet of tin up, stuff like that, something that, I can fix. So we have wooden stumps or steel stumps. We have corrugated iron roofing. Now, inside, doesn't really matter to me what's inside the house, and it doesn't really matter because everything can be fixed. If you've got a house on stumps, everything can be fixed. The first thing you do, you go through and you level your house out and make sure it's fine. So we'll just go through a few pointers on how about when you actually buy the house and it settles, what do you do? Well, you go through and you make sure your stumps are fine. If you've got a few rotten stumps, you need to replace them. You need to make sure your roof's fine, because that's the two main things that you need to do before you start any renovations. Make sure it's nice and level. Now, even though you level it up, it might not mean that the cupboards and everything inside are good, you know, the doors closed. But at least you've got a level playing field. The roof needs to be secure. You don't want to spend $20,000 inside new kitchen, bathroom and stuff like that, and then find that the bloody roof flies off. That's not good. So, stumps, level, roof. Then you can do stuff inside. We don't want to be painting outside just yet. We're going to do the inside. Now, most people say, oh, the floor covers will be okay. You know, that's no problem. Rip the bloody things up. You want it nice. You want as much rent as you can get for it. The more rent you get for it, the higher it is, the less trash or the less so desirable tenants that you're going to get in it. Now, people say, oh yeah, but slums rent. Sure, they rent, but they're just a maintenance nightmare. So that's why you need to make sure that you have, you know, a good property, something that you would live in yourself. Ideally near schools, but it doesn't, you know, it doesn't have to be like that. I like a carport or two as well, but there's something you can add later. So you rip all the floor coverings out. It'll be the very first thing you do, get it back to bare. If you're going to replace your kitchen, you rip all that out. Rip anything out that doesn't need to be there. Then you'll start from your ceilings. You'll prep it all, whether it be oil-based undercoat or whatever it needs. Depends on whether it's all acrylic inside. You'll undercoat all your skirtings, all your window frames, all that kind of stuff. So then you'll go through and you'll start painting it. Obviously doing your kitchen, your wet areas of bathroom. Make sure that your bathrooms are all watertight, because that's where a lot of damage comes in, through your bath or your shower. You might have to rip some tiles out just to, if you see any kind of water damage at all in the back of the bedroom, stuff like that, rip them out, get back to the bare, waterproof it, then put it back together. There's nothing